Hello, and welcome back to our week two of our Love and Relationship series. My name is Tamika Sally, and this is my husband.
Travis Sally.
And we are here with week two to talk about our relationship needs. I have needs. And with us, we have four lovely couples, and they're going to introduce themselves shortly. But this session is sponsored by the Women of Destiny Women's Ministry at Bible Way Ministries International in Atlanta, Georgia. So why don't we get into getting to know all of our couples, which we call co-hosts, one by one. So first, we're going to start with Tony and Sherry.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tony Glenn, originally from South Georgia, been living here in Smyrna for about 20 years. We've been married going on 10 years here in Cinco de Mayo. My wife,
Sherry Glenn. I'm originally from Florida. I've been in Atlanta now for a little bit over 20 years. I have one son. Tony has 5.
5 kids.
So, we have a very blended family, mostly adults. So we're pretty much empty nesters. And we're happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Danny and Latanya.
Hello, everybody. I am Latanya Wade, and this is
Danny Wade.
and we've been married for 12 years, and we have 2 kids, a daughter and a son, and we are living in Atlanta, Georgia. Glad to be here.
Welcome, welcome.
And we have Michael and Cashmere.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Wilkerson,
Cashmere Wilkerson.
and we're here in Dayton, Ohio. Good snowy, cold in the teens. We have 2 children, and we've been married for 8 years.
Great. And so Ryan Pat.
Hello, everyone. I am Pat
I'm Sarai.
Rumpf, and we are here in beautiful H-Town, Houston, Texas, but with roots in Columbia, South Carolina.
Right, SC.
Actually raised in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and she was born and raised in Le Bon, Costa Rica. We
Wonderful.
have been married for 7 years, going on our 8th year, and we have a lovely, lovely, energetic, who's turning 2 this year, Nyla Rose.
Nyla Rose. That's a beautiful
Beautiful.
name. Beautiful name.
She
All
picked-
right. So we are going. Oh, I'm sorry. Sarai, you want to say anything before I go any further?
No, Patrick cover everything.
You covered it. Okay.
Well, we've been married.
Oh, we should talk about ourselves, huh?
How about that?
How about that? Okay.
So we've been married a little over 9 years.
About to be 10.
We have 2 puppies,
From Lola and Ranger. The
One
big one and a little one.
big one and a little one. The little one's 8 years old, and the big one is about 3.
Yeah.
And those are our kids for now.
Well, I'm from South Carolina. You're from South Carolina. Well, I'm from Orangeburg. And you're from Columbia.
I'm from
South
Colombia.
Carolina.
I was born in Stuttgart, Germany.
I was just born in Orangeburg. Nothing. Nothing to add there. So yeah, I've been in Atlanta 15, 16 years, something like that.
And I've been here right at 19 years.
Yeah. Can't believe that. It seems like I just moved here. Time flies.
Yes.
Well, let's jump into this conversation. So this week we're talking about I have needs, relationship needs. And just to piggyback on last week, the list came up. The list. We've all had a list. Now, men, you all will probably say, no, we didn't have a list. That's women do that. No, y'all have lists. Because apparently Travis had a list with a left-hander that was tall. So he can end up with some power forwards. So there's a list. Even if it's a running tally in your mind, obviously there is a list. So I wanted to talk about your list. And do you think at the time when you created your list, and what will be interesting is that, and I'll say in different parts of your life, your list may start off one way, and then as you get older, that list really begins to evolve and change over time. And so I want you all to share about your list. Do you think your list was realistic? Do you think it had a common theme of maybe a lot of aesthetics and shallowness? Or were you just always deep from the very beginning? And if you're open to sharing some of those themes that were on your list, absolutely share them. I'll put that out there for any of you to jump in on.
So since I brought up the list last week, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and start us off. But so the first thing was that I wanted him to be a Christian. That was the first thing. Wanted to be physically attracted to him. Wanted him to be a gentleman. Still have that chivalry, opening the doors, all that. Wanted him to be educated, goal-oriented. I had quite a long list, so I won't go into the
We often do. We often do.
the whole thing, but those are probably my top 4 right there.
Okay. And so did your list evolve over time, or that just kind of, your list just kind of remained the same?
I would say that it evolved over time. I think initially when I started thinking about my list, it probably had more to do with like physical type stuff, and even financial type stuff. But as I evolved, as I grew, as I got closer to Christ, it kind of went away from those some of the superficial things and went more towards what I would say more godly characteristics.
Okay. Danny, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and I really didn't have a list. Well, at the time, I wasn't even, because I was divorced, and, brought up, thought, one and done kind of thing. But when I thought about a companion and somebody I wanted to be with, because of, what happened in previous relationships, I wanted somebody who was independent initially. And she was very independent. And then I wanted someone who was God-fearing, someone who, loved themselves, thought of themselves highly, also had a good relationship with their parents. And then someone who kind of completed me, someone who would encourage me, someone who complimented me, and we complimented each other. We kind of was where I was lacking, she would be the strength and vice versa. So those are the things that I was kind of looking for initially. But as you said, Tamika, that that list kind of changed a little bit. And as we got together and I realized how independent she was, I was like, well, maybe.
It's amazing what we ask for, and then when we get it, we realize, what I really wanted.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want this.
You need to be needed, huh? You need to be needed.
That's the primary need of a man.
Exactly.
They need to be needed.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to jump, like when we were dating, I hope I made you feel needed, because I would always ask you to take my trash out. Like I hate taking trash out. So when we started dating, and if he came over, I would already put the trash together outside by the door. It was just an expectation that I had, like, you're going to take the trash out, right?
So that wasn't feeling needed.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Man.
That was Du Bois.
It was short of being a honey-do list. It was just one thing. That was just one thing that I enjoyed allowing you to step into. Minor, but it was bad.
To Tamika be the glory.
Yeah, you know what? Never mind. Anybody else? Like, what did your list look like realistically? Well, was it realistic? Did it evolve over time? How did you reconcile that even after the fact? Because we all know we may have a list of desires. It doesn't mean that we would get all those things in the list. So that is a misconception that people have. Because if you are from a church background, it's a lot of people just naming and claiming. And so they have their list. And so they gonna write the vision, you know, all the key terms. We're gonna write the vision and we're gonna make the list. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like being goal oriented and writing things down, there's nothing wrong with that. But also being open to the leading of Christ and to things that may not be on your list, like not being so rigid about the things on your list, and then understanding that sometimes the things that you think that you want may not necessarily be the thing that you need, or the thing that you really like once you get it.
Because putting that list together is like trying to win the Powerball. Like you are trying to win this lottery of this perfect victory, and how many times you fall short. Now, I may not win the Mega Ball, but if I get 2 or 3 or 4 of these, I'm still gonna be happy and I can live. And I mean, that's pretty much how that list works.
That's funny because I was thinking Build-A-Bear. I was like, you know, you can get a Build-A-Bear, you take a piece for this, I want some of that. Yeah, I like some kindness, a whole lot of money. Like, you know, all these things, you can put them together into a person and bam, you know, it works.
There it is.
It does.
That's good. That's good.
Anybody else's list?
I'll go ahead and go. My list, you're right, it kind of evolves over time, and we met very young. So back then, you know, you free, you like, I'm just gonna do. And so my list was pretty self-serving. I had these expectations. I'm like, oh, he's gonna be this tall, he's gonna look like this, he's gonna have money, you know. And then, you know, you start to mature and age, like you said, and then it becomes more of a, you know, he's gonna compliment me, he's gonna strengthen me, he's gonna support me.
Yeah.
So, you know, your list does evolve over time. And that's
give him a pat on the back. Pat on the back.
So, you know,
once he did tag you in, you know you next.
Yep.
I'm next. Yeah, I mean, I second everything my beautiful wife said. You know, like I said, the list. My list back then was, I didn't have a huge a list like that. My biggest thing was she got to know the Lord, or my family it ain't gonna ride. It ain't gonna ride. And my family's very tight when it comes to new people into the family. Like they push you. So I was like, I gotta be able to. I think Travis said in the last episode, and I fully agree with that. I have to be able to leave her in a room with my family and know it's gonna be fine. Like she's gonna be able to get along with everybody, and she can hold her own. That's the biggest thing. So that was huge. And then competitive. Like I always say I want someone who can be competitive, who likes to not just in like meaningless things, but like just life in general. They don't want to quit. They want to be competitive and really fight to get what they want. Because I know that's how I'm built. I really want to keep going. So if I have someone who can't see that and get that mindset, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Push each other.
I'm gonna tell you a little bit. Well, my list before I met Tamika and was dating, Atlanta changed my list. Because of course it was okay. I want a woman who loves the Lord. She's professional. She's entrepreneurial. She's doing those things. And I met a lot of those women, and they were crazy. And not to say that just because they were doing those things, I was like, wow, what about these folks that I'm meeting? What's wrong, or what do I need to change?
Like, why are you attracting these people?
Right.
That kind of thing.
You know, and it's just sometimes in Atlanta, you just run into, of course, they talk about the ratio of men to women in Atlanta, and you meet, as a man, you can meet a lot of different women, different parts of their career, high, low, whatever, and it was just like, wow, this is strange. I need to pray about my list. I need to pray about my list a little bit more, because there's something that I've asked for, I'm getting it, and I don't like it. So it started evolving that okay, this career-minded thing isn't that important to me. However, I need someone who is independent. Where they are in their career, because someone who's working 80 hours a week to get to where they are, they don't got time for me. And that's what I found out. You know, hey, I'm just a speed bump. I'm just somebody I'm just somebody to go have dinner with on the way to your next meeting.
I'll fit you in. I got a 2 o'clock.
Absolutely.
I'm 45.
And I thought that's what I wanted, but it wasn't. I want someone who actually has time to get to know me and allow me to get to know them. It's not, I don't want to work for your assistant to find out when we can go eat. It was just natural. So when she came out to see me cooking, I said, okay. I didn't have to talk to her assistant. It was just, it just flowed. And Tamika will tell you, I'm very, very spontaneous. I don't need a list. I don't need the plan. Let's just do it, and whatever happens, happens. So that's kind of how I ran with my list and thinned it out. But God was first.
That's interesting that all of the men on here, that has been the thing on your list. Though it may not have been a list per se, but is that just something that you kind of had at the top of your mind?
What's that?
Like God, they had to be God-fearing. Like, because that seems to be a common theme so far. Everybody's like, yeah, they had to love the Lord. I mean, I ain't know the Lord all my life, but I did come to know him when I was young, you know? So I'm just wondering, because I'm sure there are people who are watching that, you know, maybe in church, may not be in church. So realistically, like, all y'all wanted women that was...
I dated a woman who was Muslim at one point in time. And she and I had a conversation like, if we're going to move forward, how is this going to work? What are we going to teach our kids? What's our foundation going to be? When they ask about this, what is our answer going to be? And I knew that was not going to work. This is the set of values that I grew up with. This is what I believe, and this is we believe something different. I don't really care. Not that I don't care about your religion. I didn't care. But if we are going to move forward, we have to have a common belief system. Period.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that too, Tamika. And Travis hit it right on the head. It goes back to my grandmother and my mom. You know, I mean, born and raised in the church. You know, grew up. You know, and just seeing what they, you know, that Proverbs 31 woman, that, you know, it's like, you know, yeah, that's what I want. You know, so my grandmother and my mom was the two that kind of made that impact on me the most.
Yeah. Okay.
And
well, Tony and Sherry, how about you guys? In this list, was it a realistic list? Was it not realistic?
My list was probably like what you know, what a lot of you all were saying. I would think probably by the time I got around to meeting Tony, my list had definitely evolved. I'll kind of agree with Travis that Atlanta can definitely change your list. And plus, I had already been married previously, so I knew exactly what I didn't want. So that was unfortunately, my point of comparison, because of course, my ex-husband, we dated from like 9th grade until, you know, so that was just the only point of comparison. I didn't truly date until I was divorced. So that evolved over time as I learned myself more. But I would say that obviously a God-fearing man, and I had things on there like he had to be tall. I'm not a short woman. I cannot have the tall woman, short guy. I just could never reconcile with that. It just didn't work for me. And we had to have a little meat on him too. You know, I was like, I need you to have a little bit of So I just knew those things that were appealing to me, you know. And my family's Caribbean. We like to eat, you know, I just needed somebody that could come around my family and would just gel with us, you know, would understand how committed I am to, you know, my family and be able to blend in well with us. And I was also a single mom, you know. I think by the time I met Tony, my son was in college, but he's my only child, and that relationship was important for me. So I wanted someone who could not come in and necessarily be a father to him. He had a father, but somebody who could respect the relationship that I had with him, the relationship that I still have with his father, and could come in and be an additional source of support for him. And I really did not want to be with anybody who had not been married before, because I had already been down the road with the whole being married and, you know, just the growth that comes with that. And I wanted somebody who had already experienced that. And lastly, obviously he had to have a good relationship. If you have kids, I had my questions that I asked all guys who have kids, you know.
Got that application ready?
Yeah, you gotta, are you paying child support? Are you are you taking care of your kids? What kind of relationship do you have with your children? How often do you see them? What's your relationship like with their mother? You know, that kind, I have to go through those questions. And that was a big thing for me. Like, I could not date that guy. So those were, it was a lot, but what I realized in a lot of the other traits that I wanted was a guy, you know, somebody who was ambitious. And I feel like all the things that, you know, I realized that sometimes he has a way of sending you exactly what you need, not necessarily what you want. Because what I do know today is Tony is kind of the calm, you know, he kind of balances me out. And I know that I could never be married to somebody who was like me all the time. We would drive each other nuts. And he just has a quiet, like, not so quiet. You know, everybody that knows Tony knows he's not quiet, but he has a quiet presence about him where he has a great way of communicating with me in a way where I don't feel less than and criticized. And he is the great balance for someone like me who had some traumatic childhood experiences. So that was another thing I knew I had to be in a relationship where I felt wanted and valued and all those things. And he's that. So I looked out.
Wonderful.
And now, of course, now I get choked up, right? For me, I came to Atlanta in 2000. Prior military, had just gotten into church. I came in with a great list. And that list ended up in divorce. So shortly after my divorce, I had another list and had a chance to meet Sherry, believe it or not, online. And I knew from the start I needed God-fearing, but most important, the question for me was, do you want more kids? And I say that because I have 5 kids, and Lord knows if she wanted more kids, I'd have been like, it was nice to meet you. That was the second thing I asked, you know, you believe in God and how you feel about church? Do you want more kids? Okay, we can talk. So it evolved from there. But most of the thing, I knew I needed somebody to work with me because I didn't come in the greatest place financially because I was working, paying child support. So I got everything on my list and more because I knew, okay, I needed a go-getter. And to the point, like you said, Travis, I needed her to slow down just a little bit, but we found that great balance over time. So I'm grateful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I would definitely say that he probably had a lot more to offer than he felt like he did at the time.
Yeah, a little broken. I came in broken. So,
but I definitely saw a lot in him when I met him that first time. Of course, we had chatted online for like 6 months before we met face to face. So I had a lot of time to have some small talk. So of course, when I met him face to face, I was like, oh, okay, you know, I just saw so much more in him.
I checked some of them boxes, that's all.
But yeah, and I would say the one thing that I did appreciate, you know, was that, you know, a lot of times, you know, women that have dated, you know, when you meet a guy, it's like, oh, you know, me and my kids, we this, and you think they all tell you they have a great relationship with their kids until you actually like meet the kids. That's when you really know what kind of dad. But I think the one thing I really respected a lot about him was he was a phenomenal father and has been to my grown child, you know, so.
You do have a beautiful blended family. I love it.
Yeah.
That's really good. Now, Pat and Sarai, come on through. Tell me about this list.
Well, when I met Pat, I was just 23, so my list was simple. I wanted somebody else from my same church, taller than me, because I'm 5'3", so it couldn't be like my same height. I'm like, have to be taller, not be too short people there. I mean, that was important for me. Also, somebody that was educated and confident, right? Like someone that have personality, confidence, and treat me well, of course. You know, that was very important, that I feel connected and he treat me well. So those were the things that I was only thinking back then. I mean, I was not thinking nothing deeper. Of course.
And that's okay.
Right. And once we got married, of course, things evolved and got even better. I saw how driven he is, how focused, goal-oriented, determined. Like he have all these things that amaze me all the time. Of course, he's not as spontaneous as I would like him to be sometimes, but I am. So he's a good balance. So he kind of like say, okay, we have to plan it a little bit more, and, and you know, have like the whole schedule. So he kind of like, you know, we balance each other out really well. And I mean, I'm happy. I'm really happy with what God had for me, and okay, I hope he thinks the same.
So Patrick, what was on your list?
So she was 23, I was 24, right? So, you know, when you're yet young and immature, you know, you're thinking like, okay, does she look good? You know, if I bring around my friends, are they gonna say, "Oh, Pat, whoa"?
Exactly.
You know, but the thing was this: like, she says, I'm very ambitious, and I was immature, but I was also mature when it came to knowing what I wanted in life. And so, you know, I read Gary Chapman's book, right, 5 Love Languages, right, and I kind of identified that I wanted someone who, you know, give me those positive words of affirmation and quality touch. Like those were the 2 things for me. So those what I was kind of looking like, you know, in the background. All right, that's what I'm talking about. And also too, I just kind of knew at the end, like even though I was like, I wanted somebody who wanted to have fun. She's very spontaneous. I would give her that. I'm like the stick in the mud in the relationship. Is it in the budget? You know, but I knew that I wanted to have a family, right? Because I come from a single parent, you know, family, right? But I have wonderful cousins. My cousin came and got me from undergrad. We went all the way down to Columbia for Thanksgiving. I have a wonderful family, but I just knew that I just didn't have that person in the household for me. And so family was very important to me. And so when I guess the second time I went to Costa Rica, I met her family, and I was blown away by her family. The way that they welcomed me in, and
I love him.
And they put me to the test because, you know, I speak Spanish. You know, I studied it. We were pen pals and everything. They asked me to pray in Spanish. They put me on the spot.
That was hazing. They were hazing.
I tell you, I did my thing. They were like, "Oh, okay, you do speak Spanish." And so that's how I knew. And I think the respect was mutual because everything leading up to how we got married, they were involved the whole way. So I wanted to reciprocate that whole family vibe just to bring us together closer. So if you're talking about a list, I mean, you know, someone who gives those positive words of affirmation, somebody who likes to spend, you know, has that quality, well, no, not quality time. It's more so like physical touch, and then also comes from a great family, because that's what I knew I wanted.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think I definitely had a list because that's what they told us to do. So they told all the little church girls that was looking for them a husband, go ahead and put them, you know, get their little list together. And so I always had a list, but over time it evolved. And so the theme of that list were very like weighty things I think about. Well, let me back that up. No, I think initially my list almost sounded like it was a business transaction. Like it was all about what you have and what you can do for me, but not in the sense of me taking advantage of you, but from a space of security. I grew up poor and I had no intentions of being that in my adult life. So I wanted to pair up with someone that could one, understand that and also be on the way there, or I'm okay if you was already there because I'm trying. I'm enjoying it. You know, I just skip on over that and just join you. You know, so that's kind of where my list initially evolved from. Was from a place of security. If I were to think about the things that I listed, that seemed to be very business minded, whether it was the whole good credit thing and owning things, whether if you own some sort of real estate or owned your own, you know, basics of owning a car or something like that, but being good with money, have savings. Like I was asking questions like these people was about to fill out a loan application. But I wasn't asking them, but that was a part of my list. But I realized it came from a need of feeling secure when I had to take a step back and think about it. And then, of course, there were other things like I'm tall, to Sherry's point. I would prefer someone who is taller than me. I think after a while, you are indeed taller than me. I think after a while, though, I even considered like, well, what is he about my height? Like, or a little shorter kind of thing. And then it was like, nah, keep holding on. You'll be all right. Let's just keep moving. So it was things like that, height. I wanted there to be physical attraction. I wanted my husband to adore me, you know, and to love me. I don't think I realized until after I got married that out in this world, I don't really have a need for affirmation from others, like even at my job and at work, whatever. If I do a good job, that's nice. You know, if you tell me congrats or whatever, you know, that's cool. But I realized after being married that being affirmed by him was a need that I didn't know that I had until we were together. And then I was like, well, no, I need you to tell me I did good. You know, it's like, and then part of me was like, Tamika, you don't act like this any other time. But I am my most vulnerable with him. And he gets to see all the parts of me. And so because of that, I think I want to feel, it goes back to feeling safe. It goes back to feeling secure. One of those ways of feeling safe and secure is to know that he would affirm me, that he's pleased with me, and that I'm doing well, you know. And he has that whole secure, like physically, my physical person. Oh, he's a doomsday prepper, I think. So from that's him, but like he would want to do drills in the house. If something happened, this is what we're doing. And it's like at 2 o'clock, this happens, what we gonna do?
1400.
1400, such and such happened, what are you gonna do next? Go. I am home. Like this.
So as we talk, and I'm gonna jump in, this is about need. And for me as a man, one of my needs or one of my responsibilities is to take care of this house, everyone and everything in it. The dog, it's last year, the dog set the alarm off, set the motion detector off. She got up and started going towards the door. And I yelled at her, what are you doing? Oh, it's just a dog. You don't know that. You plan that it is the worst case scenario, and you go get your butt in the closet with your cell phone and you dial 911 and you wait for me to say dial the last one. It's my job to go out there and see what's going on. And from a need standpoint, I need you to follow that instruction because that is me taking care of this house.
Yeah.
And I mean that's and for a lot of us men, we're here to take care of you. And that God put us at the head of marriage and we want to lead and we need those things. So it's a drill. You got to practice that because, oh my gosh, the alarm went off. No, we got to practice just make sure you're safe because I'm the one who's going to put myself in harm's way for you and everybody else.
Yeah. And that was actually a point of contention for a while because I was like, chill out, you know, kind of thing. I was aloof. It went right over my head. Oh, goodness. But I had to understand the importance of that to him because in my mind, again, Danny over here praying for an independent woman and he got one. I'm an independent woman. I can take care of this. It's whatever, you know? And he's like, no, you need to listen to me. Y'all heard him? Dial 911 and wait for me to give you the instructions to dial the extra one. Like it was really serious about that. And it took me a while to understand the importance of listening to him and understanding how that made him feel. And if I wanted him to affirm me, I needed to make sure that the way that I interacted with him and respected and responded to him was affirming to him.
Because I'm going to get Roscoe and we going downstairs to handle this business.
I think I would say, to your point, I struggle with the same thing. And probably that was definitely a point of contention in our relationship. And he would tell me things and I'm like, oh, it's not that serious, you know. And I never forget something I thought was so small. I used to go running. When I first met him, I was running. So I come back, and the first time I got back, you know, dark had just fallen. You know, it was just right at the. So the next, he was like, do me a favor. He's like, I don't mind you running, but get back before it's dark. I'm like, oh, okay. So the last time I'm running and I'm almost back home, and this car is speeding out there, like coming around the corner, like almost on two wheels, and just stops. And he's like, get in the car. And I was like, he was like, I've asked you. I was like, oh, he's like big mad. He's like mad for real. No, and that was my first, but I was so independent. I've been independent, you know, my whole life. You know, I left home when I was just 18, you know, and I have never gone back. I've been on my own for a long time. Even when I was married before, I was independent. So it was just very hard for me to defer to somebody. And I think it was a security thing, you know. I felt like if I didn't do all these things for myself, that, you know, I wouldn't be okay, because I had never been in a situation where I was okay and felt secure until now. So I never did that again after that. And I still, like, even now he'll tell me, he's like, can you move out the way? You know, can you let me do this? It's a constant struggle. I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad for him, because I was like, I know I'm still struggling with it, but he knows my heart at this point, which is a good thing.
But in my defense, I am raised by strong Black women, 2 doors from the church. So that whole thing. And then I am military, the crazy Marine, and law enforcement. So I had some police experience where I know if a lady is out there by herself at night, it may not end well. Let's not even open those doors. So let's be safe. And that way I won't worry and stress you out in the meantime.
But I think we're much, I would like to think I'm much better in that way.
We still together.
Sarah, that first time it caught you off guard, didn't it? Started you like, oh, man.
I was like, but then I understood it, and then, you know, initially I kind of had an attitude, but then it was kind of sexy.
Exactly. That's why I was like,
he cares about me. He cares about me. Like, he's worried about me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone like you on the phone in the driveway, and I came through and scared her one time. I said, yeah, you can't sit in the driveway on the phone. You get jacked in the driveway.
Yeah.
Come on in the house.
And that was really a function of not walking in the house on the phone. I was trying not to walk in the house on the phone because I like to not do that, because I want to greet him when I come home and not seem like I'm preoccupied. So by the time I get home, I try to finish it up in the driveway real quick. So when I get out, I hang up the phone. And sometimes it just takes a little longer. But then the doggone dogs tell on me because they hear me up in the driveway. And then they start barking. And I'm like, now I got to really go, and he's going to come out here and get mad. So, yeah. Sorry, we went up a little bit.
Tamika, I'll share very similar to all the stories that are being shared. And Patrick kind of hit it on the head. Like, my love language was words of affirmation. And I would come to her and ask her, like, hey, can you encourage me? Can you? She's like, no, you don't need that. You know, you know, she shot that down quick, you know, and I'm like, you know, and then, you know, when her form of communication would be emailing, texting, even we're in the same room. And then she emailing me like these 4- and 5-page letters. And I'm like, no, I'm not reading this. You know, I'm like, you know, can you tell me what you just wrote? Because I mean, you right here. But one of the things is like, her way of communicating and my way of communicating was different. But it took her a while. She said, well, I'm not striking your ego. I'm like, I just want some kind of encouragement, But that was my love language, So I thought about that, and this kind of still goes back to even the sense of protection, because that's what she wanted. She wanted somebody to kind of be, protective of her. And I guess my wanting affection and also wanting to be encouraged, it made her feel like I was kind of weak. But as we got, on and on, she understood my language and I understood hers. She said, okay, they kind of complemented each other. But yeah, she thought I was a wuss because I needed encouragement.
All our business.
I'm sorry. It may be helping somebody.
That sounds a little bit like us, because Tony, I say this all the time, Tony grew up with a lot of love. A lot. And my upbringing, it was a little different. And I just wasn't used to anybody needing so much, so. And I was just like, yeah, it was a lot. And I just told him, I said, it's a lot. It's just a lot. And I don't think I articulated that very well early on in our relationship. But once I spent the more time I spent around him and his mom, I understood it. The more time they spent around me and my family, he understood me. So I think it was just that understanding where we finally kind of got on the same page. I was like, this is a lot.
But it's also a balance, real quick. It's also a balance, though. Once I needed the same thing, I needed the physical touch and words of affirmation. With her is quality time and acts of service. Once I learned to love on her languages, she learned to give me on mine. So it's a give take. So the more time I spend with her, the more things that I do in kindness, the more I get to hear that you all right.
That common theme of time, like giving each other time and space, because you can't just, oh, he didn't do it or she didn't do it, that's it, I can't deal with this. No, when you love each other and can give each other grace and space to grow. So in those times when there are differences, like there's a gap there, and I may be here and you may be there, in those moments, the love and the patience will help me in those times where it fills the gap. So now we're on the same page and we're doing the same dance. Because that absolutely helps. And the 5 love languages has came up a whole lot on this session. And that's Gary Chapman. Anybody who's listening has never heard of the 5 love languages. That's Gary Chapman's book on the 5 love languages. Y'all gonna have to help me out in case I forget any. Physical touch, words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service,
quality time.
Yes, those are the 5 love languages. And most times we are dominant in a few of those areas more than others. And when we don't communicate or show or express our love to one another in those areas, we can feel unloved. And that book was a little eye-opening, though it's an old book, but it's really good points, and it can apply to any relationship. So I have one last question. We've talked about the list. We talked about what our what we got and what we didn't get. Well, we didn't talk about what we didn't get, but just kind of some of the nuances of our list. How did you reconcile not getting everything that's on that list? So when it's just like, oh, well, we're together, now I don't have everything that's on the list. How did you reconcile that? Did you say, well, I guess I just work with him or her? And or like, did that encourage your communication more? Because if anything, you're going to need to talk even more, because you got to be able to express your needs and feel comfortable enough to do so, which goes back to a thing for me again. I need to feel safe with you, which he was giving me the eye, which I thought we might save for the week when we talk about conflict resolution. But we don't typically argue. We have disagreements. But there are times when if we don't talk it out, or I may want to talk right then and there and he doesn't, and I just got to get it out. So he might end up with a long text. And I'll just drop it. And then we can talk about it later. Or I may check in and be like, are you ready to talk now? Can we talk now? And he's good at that too. He'll circle back with me too and then say, okay, I'm ready to talk about it. But there are times when I'm so full So full. And so I need to get that out. And
That's next week. Baby.
I know, it's next week, but I'm just going to say I need to get it out. And so it just turns into a long text. So somebody was talking about like the 4-page letters. Mine just be a long text.
And Danny, you and I are definitely family because I'm going to come to her and say, well, what did you write? Because I'm not reading all that.
And that makes me mad. Okay, yeah. That's next week. That's next week.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I have stopped the long letters and the long emails. And so, as we've evolved, I've learned how to communicate better because I'm not really a talker, but I've learned how to communicate and just tell them what I need. And then I think, like Tony said, as far as our needs, we've learned that, like you said, when he's given that quality time, then in turn, he'll get those words of affirmation, and they just kind of balances out over time after you learn each other and you learn how to communicate. And then you just end up, I think, just giving each other what you need without always having to ask for it.
Yeah.
Now I'll add to Tamika, to your point. I found out very early that independence was not what I wanted. Yeah. So I changed my list quick. So it was just kind of you live and you learn kind of thing, and you be careful what you ask for. So yeah, I was like, I need a little balance there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And Tamika, so your question was, repeat your question one more time. It was, how do you reconcile what you don't have on the list?
Yes.
Okay, so for me, you kind of, I got to the point where, and I don't know if it's just like as the years go by in marriage, I got to the point where you just start evaluating that original list. And so the things that you realize you don't have, you start trying to figure out, were they that important? Because I obviously gave up those things to be with this person.
Yeah.
So obviously those things weren't as important as I thought they were, one. And then you also use that time to communicate with your spouse. Like for me, I know I always be like, you don't want to know a little bit about sports, like just a little bit, like just a little bit. And so then next thing I know, I would communicate that here and there. I just start myself, just talk about different things. She doesn't have to know every single thing, but that doesn't mean I have to stop enjoying it, right? Yeah. And next thing I know, she's like, did you see LeBron, what he did? And he was flopping. And I'm like, yeah, he was. And we had it's just reevaluating those points and then communicating back to your spouse and say, hey, like this is something that I really like need. And I don't need 100% of it, but just a little bit will help me and go a long way.
Yeah.
That was perfect. I agree with that. Communication, because you're absolutely right. Over time, your list evolves. You don't even remember those things that you so-called wanted because you're looking at this person in front of you and they are who you want. They are your list. And each day we evolve, each day we change, we continue to grow together, continue to learn more about each other. It just, grows from there. But again, just that communication is key because you need to have that give and take. That, okay, I'm, not necessarily doing what you want. Well, what could be better about it? And the more you're willing to be open and understand that person's coming from a place of love, they're not coming to make you feel bad or attack you, the more you start to learn about yourself too. And now it's me trying to please you and you trying to please me. And you just gel.
And you gotta be honest with yourself too, because you start thinking, I ain't got shit. I may not have everything on my list, but like, I ain't everything on her list either. You gotta be
exactly. It's rather sobering, right? It's rather sobering.
You want somebody tall? I'm not short, but I'm not tall. I gotta be honest. I'm not everything,
There's a couple things that I wanted to say. Just two things. The 80-20 rule that we all pretty much know, and then more talking about the words of affirmation. I will start with that. The words of affirmation real quickly. Like I told you all, I'm sharing with everyone here, words of affirmation. So one thing I knew to affirm that she was here for me, when she came from Costa Rica to visit me in Michigan, she stayed with the OG, my grandmother, for a whole week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Yeah, you're right, for two whole weeks. And if anybody's gonna find out anything about a young lady, it's gonna be your OG.
Yes.
It's gonna be your grandmother. And not only that, I had my aunt. She was there. She was staying with my grandmother as well. So she was vetting her, and my Dukes, all three vetting them. So I knew I was infirm when I told her, you know, she left, and I sat down with all of them when we were having dinner. I said, okay, what do you think of Sarai? You know, it was a whole thing because I knew I couldn't trust myself to make the decision. So I said, you know what? I've messed up so many times. What do you all think? And they gave me that affirmation. So that was number one. So I reflect and meditate on that because whatever my list was back then when I was 24, it's irrelevant, right? They say, hey, this is the one that you want right here. This is it. And then the second thing is, you know, we've all heard it, the 80-20 rule, right? You know, don't lose your 80% for a 20.
Yep.
And I reflect on that as well. So, you know, like kind of like what Michael was saying, you know, you're just not even really thinking about it so much. You know, you're reflecting on what you have now, and you're really trying to see, okay, how can I water this more to make this good? And that's where my
good one
was.
Yes.
Good one. I like that. Yeah, that's a good one.
And I would just add that it's similar. I mean, it's like the 80-20, but focus on the positive because there's so many positive things that you're like, why would I even waste my time on small things that might not be important? And you just focus on those things that your spouse makes you happy with. So I would just add that.
That's wonderful. So I think a common theme everybody kind of discussed tonight, everybody wanted a God-fearing woman. How about that? So I guess we've been saved, sanctified all our lives real early. Thank the Lord. Hallelujah. So between that and then understanding that the needs that we did have, how to communicate those things well, and be specific about them, reconciling those differences. If we didn't necessarily get all the things on the list, you know, how do we deal with that? How do we reconcile those things? And what some of the other things that kind of came up was just how we were raised. How we were raised oftentimes helps shape our perception of what we go into with relationships and all of the things that come with that. So I think tonight was a great conversation. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, guys, I want to thank you all for being my co-host. And to the audience, thank you so much for joining us for another session on our series, our Love and Relationship series. We hope that you will join us again next week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, be blessed. Bye-bye.